11 rights that women did not have before feminism. I feel like everybody knows this one. Women were not allowed to own or open their own bank account. Well, that is without permission from their husband or a male relative. But can you imagine not being able to have your own bank account? You would have to hide your money under the bed. You wouldn't be able to invest. You wouldn't be able to show your savings for a house. All sorts of things. It actually wasn't until 1974 when women were allowed to have their own bank account without a man's permission. Number 2 is women were not allowed to serve on jury duty. This doesn't seem such a big deal to those that don't ever want to serve on jury duty, but the idea that they didn't allow women to serve shows exactly what they thought of women and women's opinions. The last state to allow women to do jury duty was 1968. I think some of these things would have been hundreds and hundreds of years ago, not as late as 1968. Number 3 is practice law. Now, this is actually one that I never thought about, never heard about, and just wasn't something that I had considered. But how bad for women that women were not allowed to practice law. That means that for women, you could never have a female lawyer. There was no women fighting for women's rights legally. That's actually quite scary. It was only in the late 1970s were women allowed to start practicing law, even if they had a law degree. Does not seem that long ago. Or is take birth control pills. Now, to be fair, they weren't available until the 1960s, but the fact is, when they first were available, they were only certain women could have them. So they weren't freely available to all women. Of course they weren't. And number 5 is go on maternity leave. Now, we're not just talking about paid maternity leave or being allowed to take a few weeks off after having a baby. Back in the day, when women got pregnant, they had to leave their jobs because no one was giving them time off to have a baby and look after a baby and then come back to work. The Pregnancy Discrimination Act didn't come into effect until 1978 in America. Wow, 1978, until women were not allowed to be fired for being pregnant. Hard to imagine nowadays where most countries have maternity leave, let alone maternity leave. And number 6, women were not allowed to legally breastfeed in public. That's just crazy to me because breastfeeding in public still seems such a huge issue. I hadn't really thought about the fact that legally women were banned from breastfeeding in public, not just socially by people that didn't get it. Wow. To think that women could have gotten into trouble, that it was illegal, that you could have had a screaming baby that you were not able to feed until you got to the privacy of your own home, or you were committing a crime. And the next one is women were not allowed to attend an Ivy League college until the late 1960s, and Harvard in particular waited until 1977. So I definitely thought women were at least able to go to college. We understand that the Ivy League universities and colleges, whatever you call them, are the UB elite universities. But yeah, the fact that they didn't allow women to study at them is just crazy to me. Not until 1976 were women allowed to join a military academy. And the reason it makes me laugh is nowadays men are very quick to say, oh, women wanted equality, but they don't want to be drafted. First of all, nobody asked women, did we agree with the draft, or did we think women shouldn't be drafted as equal beings? But here we have it, that women were actually fighting for the right to join the army, to join the military, and we're not allowed to until 1976. Take that, misogynist. And the next one doesn't really bother me too much because I'm not really into running and sport, but for the women that are into running marathons, this one's for you, because up until the late 1970s, women were not allowed to run the Boston Marathon. Only men were allowed to run it. Men really wanted to keep women out of absolutely everything. Why did men hold on to that ideology of women not being allowed to run in the Boston Marathon for so long? Like they really held on to that, right? Didn't they? We have number 10. Serve in combat. Yes, that's right. Here we go. Men that want women to be drafted. Women fought for the right to actually go into combat, and it took women until 2013 for men to say yes. So you men can keep complaining about women not being drafted into the army and keep blaming feminists for it, when feminists themselves fought hard until 2013 before they were allowed to do combat. 2013. Number 11, women were not allowed to become astronauts until 1978. Becoming an astronaut is not on my bucket list, but it's great to know that as women, we have the right to be an astronaut if we want to. The late 60s to 70s seems like it was a real great era for women getting a whole bunch of rights, and the only reason because of the feminist movement and the women who were fighting for our rights in the 1960s and 70s. The whole point is these are 11 rights that women had to fight men for years and decades to have. And on reflection, it's hard to understand why there would have been any men that had a problem with women having a bank account or being on jury duty, or, as men seem to really want to happen nowadays, for women to go to war. Feminists had to fight long and hard to get these very basic rights. So I'm going to say thanks to all the feminists in history. Thanks for all my rights. Let me know what you think about the feminist movement in the comment section below. Appreciate you getting this far. Thanks heaps for watching. Bye for now.